we can get a perfect picture, but we don't have perfection. We're all imperfect people living in an imperfect world, and there's going to be imperfections. And we're going to grow a mindset that I just can't jump through other people's hoops. I don't have time for that. And my children also need me to focus on the task at hand, not focusing on other people's expectations. We ask, what's important now? As I'm homeschooling my children and we're beginning the school year and maybe it's off to a rocky start, it's okay. What's important right now? What if people think I'm a failure? What if people think I'm a bad parent? Okay, it happens. I can't please everybody. Taking that mindset of, I'm not going to try to be a perfectionist so that you approve of perfection. What I want you to see is that I am aggressively pursuing growth. I want to talk about perfection versus progress. It's easy, especially as young parents, to want perfection. We see the pictures that come up with box days and first days of school and how happy the kids are in the moms of masterbooks. And then we look at our own kids and we're like, man, that's not my kid. My kid doesn't enjoy doing schoolwork. They're fighting me the whole time, and we're just in this constant struggle, and I'm exhausted at the end of the day, and I feel like our relationship is growing apart, not closer. And I just had these warm feelings that, we were going to have this beautiful time together. They were going to love homeschooling. They were going to love everything they were doing, and that's not the way it's going. Well, so let's back up a little bit on that, okay? Homeschooling, like parenting, is difficult. Where do I say that from? I have 9 children. We've been at this for 30 years. Yeah, we've been parenting for 30 years. We've graduated 5. 3 are married and have children. 2 are launched single, and then I have 4 boys at home. And I can tell you that throughout the course of the 30 years of parenting, there have been phenomenal times. And then there have just been times where it was anything but phenomenal, right? Our children and their personalities, the struggles we have, the seasons they go through. And I think something that's really important to have a mindset, first of all, is a realistic expectation that there is no such thing as perfect. Sometimes we can get a perfect picture, but we don't have perfection. We're all imperfect people living in an imperfect world, and there's going to be imperfections. And we're going to grow. So our children are growing, we're growing. I've never arrived at anything yet. I'm still growing. I still intend to grow until the day the Lord calls me home. I have not arrived at some platform of perfection. And to expect that from my children, that they're somehow going to be perfect students and perfect kids, is just unrealistic when I can't deliver that as well. And so I want to have realistic expectations. When it comes to perfection, I want to ask myself, why is this important to me? What is this ideal that I'm holding to with my school? And then why is this so important to me? Is it because I'm concerned about other people's expectations? Is it because maybe my mother-in-law thinks that homeschooling is a joke and that it's not going to work, and if my kids don't succeed and I can't prove them wrong, they're going to think I'm a joke? Is that the expectation? And I have to get out of this mentality of needing to please people or meet up to their expectations, because parenting is messy. And once you've been a parent for any period of time, you realize it's just messy. When I was very young, I just had this ideal of the Gerber baby. They used to have this cute little baby that would, they'd send you insurance packs and everything, and this is probably before a lot of your times, but there was a movie a long time ago, 3 Men and a Baby, and how they all made it so cute to have this baby. And so I couldn't wait for our first child. And our experience, our first child was extremely strong-willed. She had bad colic. She just wasn't the Gerber baby. She was beautiful, and I loved her dearly, but she was rip. And she would wait until we were in a store to scream and holler. And I remember before having children, I would think, I know what that kid needs. After becoming a parent, I was like, man, what must these people think of me? But then we've had other children that were so easy. They didn't make a peep. They didn't fight. They didn't fuss. It was easy to be a parent. So my point is, it's not always easy, and it can be messy. And we have to get out of the mindset of, it doesn't really matter what you think of the job I'm doing, because you're not in my shoes. You don't have my personality. You don't have my spouse's personality. You don't have my children's personality. And so all of us combined in the season that we're going through, we have to be very a mindset that I just can't jump through other people's hoops. I don't have time for that. And my children also need me to focus on the task at hand, not focusing on other people's expectations. Lou Holtz from Penn State, one of his concepts was win, W-I-N. And what he would ask is, what's important now? Win, what's important now? And when it comes to our children, I think that that's something that is so important for us, is that we ask, what's important now? As I'm homeschooling my children, and we're beginning the school year, and maybe it's off to a rocky start, it's okay. What's important right now? There are some things that are important and some things that aren't important. And then I work to identify that. See, if I can continue asking questions about what's happening, I remain in control emotionally, right? Like, okay, what is happening? Is it a schedule issue? Is it a sleep issue? Is it a nutrition issue? All these things play into focus. And when we're parenting, sometimes we're just surviving, right? And so we don't always realize, like, maybe there's too much sugar. Maybe there's too many carbs. Maybe we need to eat breakfast. Maybe we're not getting enough sleep. Maybe we need a schedule. Maybe the schedule doesn't work and we need to loosen up a little bit. Maybe we need less video time and digital time, and we need more creative playtime. Maybe this happens a lot, not probably to you, but we want our kids to do all these fun things, and so we load them up with huge amounts of schoolwork. My suggestion would be back off a little bit, do the basics. That's why with masterbooks, sometimes people are like, well, they were done in 15, 20 minutes. Fantastic. They finished that day. Now you can add to it. You can build onto it. You can add as much as you want after the basics are done. But when the basics are so thick and you can't achieve it, it's frustrating. And so when you get frustrated like that, you begin to give up a little bit. So, okay. The other thing I think we have to do is face our fears. What if people think I'm a failure? What if people think I'm a bad parent? Okay, it happens. I can't please everybody. Recently, of course this is a guy thing I know, but I was watching a series. Well, I listened to an audiobook about Michael Jordan and his attitude. This is what's it called? You know those moments that people have? I know you know. It's just one of those pivotal moments in my life. And I know, I'm like 52 years old. And so, I'm not 52 years old, I'm 51. Anyways, it matters at this age. So I'm watching this, listen to this audiobook on Michael Jordan, his championship attitude, how hard he fought, all the things he did. Then there's a series out right now about the Chicago Bulls during that period. Now, when I was kind of coming of age, Michael Jordan was the rage, and he was one of the greatest basketball players of all time. His sneakers were going for $160 a pair, and he was this amazing specimen of an athlete. And so it's interesting now to look back on his story, and the way that he played the game, and the way that he, like, even to listen to his Hall of Fame speech where he was just driven. And if somebody said he couldn't do something, how he would prove them wrong. Like, if they smack talked him, he would, like, shove it down their throats. Like, he would just, anything it took to destroy people who talked against him. And in a way, he was jumping through other people's expectations. He was just trying to prove to them that their expectations were too low for him. And so he spends his whole life doing this. And I thought, I can relate to that. You know, I love being the underdog. I love proving people wrong. And so that's like been my thing almost my whole life. So I'm listening to a podcast, and I bring up John Maxwell. And John Maxwell is a business leader, and he's a leadership podcast. And he says, I'm going to talk about, I guess the name of the series was The Last Dance. I'm going to talk about The Last Dance and Michael Jordan. And then he goes on to say, now here's this older fella who never played basketball against Michael Jordan. He's just evaluating him based on the movie and trying to give some leadership tips. But he says, Michael Jordan's success was greater than his talent. And I thought, here's Michael Jordan, who worked so hard to prove to people that he was the best, that he was an overcomer. He was the best there's ever been. And all it takes is one person, one old man in another field to look over and say, well, his talent wasn't as big as his success. He just wasn't that talented. But he knew how to be successful. And he took it all away in one word. Now, he doesn't take away the rings, and he doesn't take away all the memories and all of that. But see how easy it is for other people to define our legacy? Baloney, right? Michael Jordan accomplished what he accomplished. What John Maxwell says about him, what difference does it make? It's just a commentary. And that's what happens with other people in our own life. When we let other people set our expectations, is they may make commentaries, but don't let them take away what you're accomplishing. Homeschooling in and of itself, the decision of homeschooling takes courage. The decision to go against the grain takes courage, and it's a stand. That alone, I commend you if you've made that decision. Okay, so it's a struggle. Yep, you're going to have to figure it out. Yep, you're going to have to get your head in the game, and you're going to have to overcome. Failure cannot be an option. Don't give up. I'm not somebody who gives up. Make that a mantra. But now you begin stepping into the next phase, and who cares about what the naysayers say and all those people? I got nothing to prove to them. My job right now, what's important now, is to focus on my children and helping them be successful. Okay, we talk about growth. For me, my mantra in life and my mantra with the marketing and the mantra when I was a pastor, if you asked what our church was about, the motto was room for growth. There's always room for growth. What I decide today may be applicable today, but tomorrow it may not work. And so I give myself room to change my mind, room to try something and say it didn't work, I'm going to try something else. And I'm going to continue trying something until I find something that works, because I give myself room for growth. And so taking that mindset of, I'm not going to try to be a perfectionist so that you approve of perfection. What I want you to see is that I am aggressively pursuing growth for myself, because we get what we lead, right? So if I want my kids to lead, I'm going to have to be committed to growing first. So I'm committed to growth. I'm committed to the growth of my family, the spiritual growth, the emotional growth, the physical growth, in all areas, growing in health. I'm committed to that growth. And yes, maybe yesterday we weren't as healthy. Maybe we weren't emotionally healthy. It doesn't matter. What matters is today I've taken a note about yesterday, and I'm working today to be healthier and to grow. And so that mindset that when somebody says, yeah, but it didn't work, or you're making a mistake or whatever, see, you can't do that, because we're working to grow. And so that's just part of the mantra, is growth. We want to see progress, not perfection. And so if I look at my kids and I see them not performing at the level I want, and I'm disappointed and I'm frustrated, sometimes it's because I'm comparing them to the perfection rather than looking at them where they are and saying it's my job as a parent, as a manager, to help give them the tools, the encouragement and support that they need to grow. And it's not about me. I think it's important as parents sometimes that we realize there's me time. There are things that I'm committed to and I'm growing to. But when it comes to my role as parent, it's not about me. They're not here to meet my needs, right? I'm here to serve them. If we look at the example of Christ and the way that he came to serve, and I mean, what an amazing example. That's the example we have, is to train and disciple and all of that. So we want to have a growth mindset that it's okay today if it wasn't the best. Let's take notes. Let's figure out what happened. Keep asking questions. Is there anything I could be doing to make things easier? Not to make it so that it's perfect, but just to grow incrementally. You know, it doesn't take. I love the analogy of a golfer. They only have to be off a few degrees when they hit the ball to be off yards down the course. That's the way life is. All we need to do is make incremental little adjustments, and as time goes on, we'll move things in the direction that we want them to. Sometimes we want it all done now. I'm frustrated because I'm impatient, and so I want change immediately. But look at it from the standpoint of the long game, and the long game is if I can just make a little change here, a little change there, then I'm going to be able to see change in the long term. And because what happens is we get frustrated sometimes because we're not seeing immediate change, and then we give up. I once heard somebody say, well, you don't have a self-control issue, you have a patience issue. You need to be patient and trust that the results are working and that you're going to see the results down the road. So if you've begun the homeschooling journey, I would like to encourage you to let go of perfectionism, let go of your mindsets of how things should look. Love the children you have, not the children you wish you had, just like you should love the husband you have and the life you have, not the one you wish you had, because comparison is the death of happiness. But love the ones you have and focus on stewarding that opportunity. Okay, so let's talk then about the struggle with our children. When we start schooling and our kids aren't performing, we think or we know that they're capable of doing more, but they're just not. Well, I want you to think of school a little bit from the standpoint of a child. They don't really get a say in it, right? So, in a way, we're expecting them to come to the table and be really excited and jump through every hoop we put in front of them. But they're a forced captive audience. They don't really get a say in it. And we have to look at it from that aspect that we've taken away some capacity. Like, we want them to have a desire to learn. Some kids do, and other kids resist because it's on other people's terms, and that's difficult. And so I think we have to be mindful of that. When I was the principal at a school, I can remember getting so frustrated because the teachers would want to send notes home about the students and how the student was capable of more, they weren't doing enough, the parents needed to do something more. And we'd sit in these meetings and I would be like, you are paid to teach. You're the teacher. You teach. Like, we don't pay them to learn, we pay you to teach. And if I had to sit in your class, I would be bored to tears. Like, you can't expect them to be excited when you have the mindset that it's their responsibility to learn. We're teachers, and so we teach, we engage, we make things creative, we try to understand what are their learning styles, what are ways we can engage with them. And so just being mindful of that, I think, can be helpful. You know, there are the typical things we can do, right? We can reward the behavior we want. When one of our students does something that we want, we reward them. We just, man, that is so cool. You did a great job. I love that. And sometimes for some students that works. It doesn't for everybody. Sometimes it's a little bit more discipline in saying loss of privileges. like, hey, there's no television, there's no video games, there's no going outside until schoolwork is done. The privilege is that. Why? Okay, because in life, that's the way things work. You don't get a paycheck if you don't show up for work. If you don't do your job, you're going to be let go. So let's prepare them with a mindset that says, if I want good things out of life, I have to invest myself. If I don't invest myself, I will lose those things. And so we can give lots of privileges. So those are the easy ways. Some other things to consider if your student is struggling. This seems to happen a lot around 4-year-old, 5, 6, 7. Those are really transitional years. And sometimes we get kickback on this, but so many times the student just isn't ready for the amount of, the intensity of the schoolwork. Like, they're just not mature. Yeah, maybe they have the intellectual capacity, but maybe they haven't developed the stamina or the ability to think critically, or even, we haven't actually been conscious about that. In this day and age with technology and YouTube, I watch kids on TV, on their pads, getting immediate feedback and response in small amounts. And then it's almost unfair when a child hasn't been trained to do deep work where they focus, to ask them to sit down at the table and really go deep and think critically, when all they've had to do is consume and not process. And so sometimes we need to step back and say, okay, maybe we need to do some critical thinking things. Maybe we can get some things that they'd be interested in, a Lego set, and let's have them build a Lego set. Can they even focus on that? Can they focus on a task like cooking a meal before they get bored and walk away, and beginning to build up those skills of being able to go deep. In our own our own experience with kids, how we ended up here, how I'm here today, the testimony of that is my oldest, and let me start by saying there's hope in this story. So I had been the principal of a school. The Lord called me to a new profession, and so I took that job. My daughter was in the school, and the Lord really laid it on our hearts that we were to homeschool. And so we brought her home. Kristen started homeschooling her. This was in the 90s. And so, homeschooling wasn't as popular then. There wasn't as many support groups and families. The support we got was from a American online chat room called Homefront Hall. We still have friends to this day from that group. And that's every night we'd dial up, as it dialed in, and then you'd type in with 20 or 30 other families from around the country that were homeschooling. So we started homeschooling, and I was doing a lot of traveling. It was rough, and we were trying to figure it out. My daughter, very strong-willed, but I was doing a lot of traveling, and while I was flying, I got off the plane, my pager went off. And so I went to the payphone. And these terms weird. I went to the payphone and I called home, and Kristen said, "Hey, I'm expelling your daughter. She's yours. I don't care what you do. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not fighting her anymore. You figure out how to homeschool her." And so I had the challenge of trying to figure out, okay, homeschooling is important to me. I was traveling I was gone from home 120 nights. So I had traveled more than that, okay? And we figured out how to homeschool her with me traveling and being out of town. So I became her principal and teacher. And the way we did it was I set her up with, here's what you're supposed to do during the day. I expect you at your desk at 9. You're to work till lunchtime. You're back at your desk at 1. By the time I get home, I expect this work to be done. If this work isn't done, there will be consequences. And I always had the idea as a dad that if you were working with mom was extremely fair, but if you abused that fairness and the privilege to work with her and it came to me, I was just going to make your life miserable. And so it wasn't much fun for Care. And And so I did the homeschooling, and if there were issues at night, she had to deal with me, and I just wasn't pleasant. It wasn't because I didn't want to be, it was intentionally. I was like, if you're going to make life miserable for everybody around you, now you're going to have to deal with the consequences, because that's life. Not saying everybody should deal with it this way, this is how we dealt with it. Just in case it inspires you with any other ideas. And so we did that all the way through from, I think, 3rd grade, 4th grade, all the way through. Now, Kristen would help pick out the curriculum, and she would help set up the school year and all of that. But the one-to-one contact, because that child just knew how to push buttons and just fought. And for some odd reason, we didn't have the same relationship. But I have others that would do the same to me now that will immediately come in line with Kristen. And so thankfully, with 2 of us, it's basically we're homeschooling each other in some ways, because our kids are so much like us. So that's how we got through it. And I found solutions. I didn't do a lot of extras. We stuck to the basics. We had a schedule. When you were done, you checked it off. And I would look at it. And there were consequences. If you didn't if you didn't take your schoolwork seriously, you didn't take it seriously with me, then it was very much like what would happen if you didn't take your education seriously in the real world, or you didn't take your job seriously. And so that's how we focus that. We eat the elephant one bite at a time, and so I would look at different components and things that we needed to do. Some curriculums just didn't work for our family, and so we adapted things, we changed things. That's why with Masterbooks we encourage you be the carpenter, curriculum is the tool. Adapt the tool to fit the needs of your student. If something isn't working, either adapt it or move on, try something else. We aren't the only game in town, we know that. I think we are a common sense approach. Masterbooks uses a very common sense approach, and it's built on a lot of years of experience in working with families and working in our own students, and the success that worked with curriculum, and trying to cut out all the nonsense that didn't work and focus on the things that do. But it's not for every family, and we understand that, and so we would encourage you to find solutions that work for your family. So there are other things here in the coming year that we're going to go over in ways that we can do that. Now, my child, who was so difficult, and I'm telling you, she could push buttons like nobody. She was so strong. And I would tell her, I would say, we used to live by Niagara Falls, and Niagara Falls is amazing, the power. But do you know that they divert a lot of that energy from Niagara Falls? They divert a lot of the water through turbines and make electricity that powers much of the Northeast. And I used to tell her, you're like Niagara Falls. If you learn how to control your energy, you will be powerful. If you don't learn to control this energy, you'll be destructive. If they didn't divert that much water over Niagara Falls, this beautiful monument that we have would just be eroded in no time. And so the diversion actually creates power. And I was like, it's like electricity. A lightning bolt is destructive, but harness power turns on lights and is constructive. And so what we want to do is learn how to be constructive with this power you have. Carrie also said, my daughter said recently, that she heard strong-willed children isn't necessarily strong-willed, that it is a lack of self-control. It's a lack of being able to emotionally control what's going on inside them. So it's not just that they're strong, it's helping them learn how to control that strength and how to have emotional intelligence, which is so important in this day and age that we live. Emotional intelligence and remaining in control and being powerful is just so powerful. So my daughter Carrie wrote Foundation Phonics. She is writing the Adventures in Creation series, so let's talk science, Adventures in Creation, Adventures in the Physical World, and I think the next one is Adventures in General Science. if I'm not mistaken, and she's working on that right now. So she went on to college, and she was on the dean's list, and she has been phenomenal in the workforce and has done, I'm so proud of her. And yet, I think of those days and the struggles at the table and just being so upset, but realizing that, you know, everything with my child, I've come to also realize it's a great type and shadow of my relationship with my Heavenly Father, because He is so patient, so kind with me. He's always working with me. And so that is the example I try to apply with my children, is to realize that they're little sinners just like me. And I need to be able to be patient and help them in the same way that the Holy Spirit helps me. Dre asked, how do my kids like MB? My kids like MB for the most part. There are a few subjects that they're used to with another solution, but because so many of the solutions were developed the way our family definitely operates as a family, it's just a really good solution. So I would probably say 90% of our homeschool is masterbooks. Some cases there just isn't a solution, electives and that type of thing. So, and masterbooks continues to grow and all of that. So, okay. Well, hey, I hope this was beneficial today. I hope you got something from it. We want more than anything at Masterbooks to see you succeed. And we have been where you've been. We know that there's struggles in homeschooling. We know that there's struggles in marriage and being a family and just life, right? Life has challenges. But we just want to encourage you, it's worth pressing through. Don't give up because your first week or your first couple weeks were difficult. Step back and say, okay, is there something we can do here? How do we change this? Maybe it's letting Dad be responsible for some of the learning at night with the subjects. And if Dad is impatient with that, maybe there's somebody else, a grandfather or somebody else that would be willing to step in and help with the subjects that you're struggling with. Or maybe you cut back, or maybe you help develop focus. Maybe you have to cut back on technology or look at more sleep or maybe improvements to diet. One of the things I'm amazed about is something as simple as Mountain Dew. When we got into special needs, we found out one of the recommendations was Mountain Dew, because Mountain Dew can be a little bit like Ritalin. And so we found that Mountain Dew actually, with one child, had such a negative effect, it put him into a depression, where all the other kids would make them hyper and coming out of their skin. This student put them into a depression. So nutrition and diets and things like that can have a huge impact. Has an impact on us as adults. I definitely can tell if I'm not getting the right vitamins that I tend to be deficient in. If I get them, man, my approach and outlook is fantastic. If I don't, not so good. So, okay. So that's the tip for today. I'll definitely go back through the comments. Brittany is in the warehouse. She's working awful hard today. I was down working next to her. I couldn't believe how hard she's working, and she's burying me with how good she's doing. So I need to get back down there. But guys, we are working hard to get these orders out, and we are praying for your families, praying for your homeschools. We want to see you succeed, and what an honor and privilege it is to serve you, and I thank you for your time, attention, and support today. God bless you guys, and next Tuesday, I don't know for sure. I know the author, Debbie Lawrence, is going to be doing a Facebook Live on God's Design Science, helping to explain the curriculum and how to make it work for your family as well. All right, God bless you guys. Have a blessed rest of your week.